The Landcare Trust has worked with Andrew on this project, and it's a showcase site for both sustainable management and peat lake restoration. In 2007, Andrew and his family were recognised for their outstanding work with a Green Ribbon Award for Rural Sustainability. So Andrew, is Andrew around? Oh, here we are. Welcome, Andrew. Good to meet you.
What we thought we'd do today is just start off and give you a bit of a context. So the Waikato region, it is a really unique region. It's also one of the prime dairying areas of New Zealand, some really high production here. But there's also this combination of having more than 30 peat lakes within the Hamilton Basin, and that creates some really unique challenges of farming within these sensitive lakes catchments.
Yeah, I've just come straight out of the cow shed, straight to here, through a traffic jam, so it's all on here now. Bought the farm in 1981, and was 40 hectares and expanded to 90 hectares. I'll point out the boundaries. You want to go, please? It surrounds these two lakes. Little lake's Lake Kaumakarau, which is, if you hear me say Lake C, is its nickname. And the bigger lake is Lake Kaituna, which is Lake B. When we arrived there in 1981, there was hardly a fence on the farm. It was a pretty run-down farm. There was no fences around the lake. It was pretty, and it was just willows, and it was choking with willows over as years come. The other thing too was a lot of silt coming in off the neighbouring properties, and these lakes were just completely disappearing. So next slide. We had to take action. Action started in 1998 because the lakes were becoming choked with willows. The lake level, like in 1981, the big lake was 4 metres deep, and then it silted up to in 1998 till only had 1 metre left of water, so to give you an idea. And this was mainly because of sand coming through off the neighbouring properties. Back in the neighbouring properties is peat, and underneath it is about 900 down was a metre or half a metre of sand. So this was ripping through. And the little lake was a metre deep in 1981, and it's come down to half a metre. And that had more finer silts because it flowed through. We consulted with Doc EW and formed a care group. It was the Hayes family, Waikato University, Landcare, Doc EW and duck shooters. And as you see up there, it says talk, chainsaw, action. Actually, it wasn't too much jaw muscle used. It was actually more the chainsaws doing the talking. So what happened here, that digger's there is actually stacking the willows. Those willows were cut earlier in January. We dropped them and painted the stumps, and the willows died off, so it was brown. If you just have a look, I'm just pointing behind the digger there, there's a couple of little cabbage trees there. So there was no undergrowth and anything like that. It took us, it was 14 hectares of willows, and they're just encroaching out into the lakes. The little lake, we'd gauged in 1998, and within 5 years it would have disappeared with just the encroachment of the silt coming in and the willows going out. And the bigger lake in 1998 was going to take 25 years, so we'd have been lost half that lake. It was a massive job. Doc gave us a hand and things like that. So yeah, it was really changed short talk. And the maintenance and spraying on the weeds was clocking around 200 hours a year. Now we're down to about 30 hours. Like, we've got to keep maintaining just a few weeds coming through. There's hardly a willow comes up. Last year there was only one young willow came up. The biggest breakthrough of the whole thing was getting it back from David Bellamy was the willow seed only lasts about 5 hours when it hits the ground. Once you get that cover back on the edges of your lake, you know, your carrots grass and all what you'll see in the next slide, that seed can't get in. I actually came from an area where it was bad for gorse, and I said, how are we going to beat this? Because what was going to happen, I thought, 100 years of seed here, and yeah, no, that was the biggest breakthrough, was the seed. So mainly grey willow, and it was crack willow. Next, so it's here.
So now what I'll do is I'll just cover some of the great results. And the reason that I'm talking to these next 3 slides and not Andrew is because he didn't want to stand up here and blow his own trumpet. So he can just stand there and blush, and I'll just talk about what's been achieved over the last 15 years, and it's really some fantastic things. In terms of the kind of around the lake and the lake itself, there's 16 hectares of buffer zones in total around these 2 lakes, and that includes 2 hectares of retired farmland. There's been a lot of natural regeneration, as you'll see in this slide here, but there's also been supplementary planting as well. There are sediment traps on all of the inflows, as well as vegetation filters on other drains, and this is basically to help trap those nutrients before they come in and enter the bodies of the 2 lakes. And then just recently, there's also been a couple of floating wetlands installed, and this is quite an exciting use of new technology, and this will also assist with trapping those nutrients coming into the lakes. On the flora and fauna front, some really exciting things here. As the habitat's improved, so has the wildlife. So there's been ducks and birds, all sorts of things coming in, some common species and some not so common species. There's also been some replanting of rare species, and along with that, we've also had some introductions of rare insects and rare fish too. But what's also really important here is the people side of things. This is a site of learning, and a lot of people have come to this lake, thousands. It's also about engaging the community. I mean, what you're seeing in this slide is a sustainable farming workshop. So farmers coming to the property and learning about sustainable farming, learning from Andrew how it's done. There are also university students and scientists involved, so there's a lot of research going on. There are educational visits by all manner of school groups, so from primary to secondary through to tertiary. Politicians, dignitaries and industry leaders have also come. So there have been visits by television crews as well, Green Party, Fonterra, and also a few famous names as well. Andrew mentioned David Bellamy. Yep, he turned up in his helicopter a few years ago. So I'll pass it over to Andrew and Alison to talk more specifically about what's happening on the farm itself, how the farm has evolved over time.
The farm now is under a whole farm management and environment plan. It's prepared on behalf of DOC, behind the DOC and Lakeland Farms by Alison Jews, which is Alison's just here, standing here. Managing the farm to protect the lakes. You have a look up there, I don't want to go through every line. Alison will talk more on this later. You have a look down the bottom down there, there's 27 kgs of nitrogen leached while increasing milk solids. To me, this is just money down the drain. So Alison will talk a bit later. The next one. Next slide. Yeah, managing the farm to protect the lakes. This is one of the main silt traps. Every drain coming in off the farm has got silt traps and a buffer zone, so everything's just filtered through the reeds and things like that. We had to bring the silt, we had to make it bigger and bigger because there's more silt coming in all the time. It gets emptied every year. Truckloads and truckloads of sand and dirt come out here. As I said before, this lake was disappearing fast. So you can see the regeneration around, like after we've taken the willows out, coming around the lake. This silt trap was revamped in 2010. It's on the main inlet drain built on farm. It's not actually on conservation land, but now we're in progress of having it under covenant. So it's better to build the silt traps back out on farmland because you get better access, and there should be, that shouldn't be the ambulance at the bottom of the hill. The silt traps should be upstream where the silt's coming from. The farms upstream should be looking after their own silt, not us sort of thing, The other thing, the floating wetland was just recently installed in here under the guidance of a PhD student, Rebecca Evers from Waikato University. She is also sampling all inlet drains for nutrients, etc. over the past 2 years on a split fertiliser program. There is going to be some very interesting results coming out of her research, which will carry a lot of weight for the future to protect the lakes from farm runoff. My next one. If you can make that out, it's turning muck into money. Looks like we're in credit here, if you can work out what that card is in there. Looks like we're in credit here now with nutrients. This is a natural resource cycle. You also, when you stand a credit card like this up in cow muck, it means the cows have a good balanced diet. Righto, next one. Managing nutrients, you can read what's going up there, just keep going through. Over the last 2 years, no phosphate, no phosphate used, no potassium or K has been used on this farm since 1984. We've kept the levels right up since 90 because it's was using the effluent. The effluent goes right around the whole farm. Less than 50 k's of nitrogen per year. I'll talk about the worm and soil health and long grazing rotation later. As you can read there, the nutrients applied, we've got it gauged down to, it takes 1 year to get around the whole farm. It's a natural resource. You can see it's going on at 12 mils. Used to go on at 18 mils and it took us a year and a half to come around and get around the farm. But this is it's a lot better because at nitrogen at 16, it's just really livening the place up. Phosphate at 5 and K. See the K there at 20? So there's been a lot of money going down the drain over the years. So that's your natural process. Right, next one. Precision decision, which means farming to the weather. That's your number one. You've got to farm to the weather to protect your lakes and things like that. Farm to the landscape, retire non-profitable areas, no cultivation to eliminate peat shrinkage, continuous monitoring and managing cows' nutrients, and just focus on profits, as you can see there. Right, next one. Healthy soil equals great stockhouse. Our earthworms, when you dig one spade, is the count at the moment when you go down one depth. We just did it the other day, it's just sitting between 17 and 29. My lowest was 17, my highest 29. When I was, the other thing too, I've missed, 17, 29. The other thing I've missed too, when way back in 2004, there was no earthworms. What was happening, we were putting on 900 kgs of serpentine super, and there was 180 N going on. And I just shake my head today. So there was no earthworms, now we've turned this right completely around. So you can see by that soil, the granulation and stuff like that, and the root system going down. So there's a good root structure and depth, clover, and the clover is really fixing nitrogen, it's got that purple thing. Animal health, never drenched bloat for bloat since 1984. Don't use much cause mag for milk fever, grass staggers. The biggest thing we just noticed in the last 2 years, we're only drenching the stock once the calves when they wean. We don't delice the cattle or anything like that. So as I say, there's a lot of answers to be answered here. I'll get Alison to speak on that.
You ready? Okay, thanks Andrew, and sorry this is a bit of death by numbers here, but really wanted to just highlight what's happening on this farm, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Andrew for the last 3 or 4 years now, and as you can see there, we've got milk solids per hectare increasing strongly, no real shift in cow numbers, slight increase, and that might come back again moving forward, but sitting at probably above average stocking rate for the average Waikato farm, although that's a feature of Andrew's cows, around 430 to 440 kilos body weight, so we probably should be talking body weight per hectare, but still a strong, stocking rate. Milk solids per cow, last couple of years, Andrew's cows have really punched above their weight, as he said, with precision decisions and managing that nutrition. I was just wrapped, that was my bank card in his cow muck, but I was seriously wrapped with his cows doing just above a kilo of milk solids per kilo body weight last year, which is just phenomenal. So they're really going well. The other thing that's just amazing here is the tonnes of dry matter harvested per hectare. This is well above the Waikato average. You will remember Andrew said that he was only using 50 units of nitrogen per hectare. We've got amazing nutrient cycling occurring on the farm, and the cows are harvesting it very, very well. So these figures mean 13.9 tonne harvested is like 15.5, 15.8 tonne grown, which is phenomenal. As you can see, soluble nitrogen use per hectare is dropping away. I think the average is around 140 or so. That might be coming back a little bit as people realise they can use their nutrients a bit better on their farms. As Andrew said, soluble phosphate use is dropping away, but monitoring that really closely so that he's not going to mine it below an optimum level to harvest pasture, but we are monitoring that one closely. And this is another part, the third leg of the stool, as has been mentioned earlier, that certainly it's got to be profitable, this business. We can't just be green if we're in the red, but Andrew's certainly not in the red with his business here. As you can see, operating profit per hectare, I've calculated this at an average of $6.50 milk solids, just to give you a bit of an idea of what an even milk price would do long term. Again, well above average. And return on assets, so obviously you can't borrow money at 8% and not have a good return. You've got to know that your returns are sound at a long-term average as well. Again, in the top 10% of the Waikato. And that's all been happening while the nitrogen leach, for example, here is heading towards 25, which is about, the average for the Waikato there is about 39. So sorry, I've got 45 there. We've been updated with those benchmarks. But as you can see, that's around 30 to 40% below the average.
Yeah, I'll just conclude here. As you can see, working all together, using practical common sense mixed with science, that's how you get results. And that's how it's happened, because we've worked with all of the different departments. No fights or scraps or anything like that, as I've seen in the past. All right. I'd like to say, the world spins in a cycle. The environment has its own cycles. Landowners, just not farmers, need to have a better understanding of the natural resources and cycles to obtain good, healthy soils and waterways. And the Hayes family would like to thank the different departments and people that have worked with us in the past, present and future. Thank you.